Hey everybody, welcome to the State Champs High School Football Weekend Wrap-Up. Now normally, Tom Markowski and I are going to be doing these on Monday. We had a busy day Monday. We are doing a couple of documentaries within the State Champs Sports Network lexicon of shows that we do, and we're doing one on Jalen Rose. He happened to be in town this week, so we got his interviews down. So you'll be looking for the Jalen Rose documentary. We call it Legends. That's going to air Sunday morning, December 6th at 9:30 a.m. It's going to be right after a State Champs episode that'll air right before it. And then we've also decided that a Tyrone Wheatley Legends that we are doing as well is going to air on Sunday, October 18th, and that will also be at 9:30. So stay tuned. Check your Fox Sports Guide for that.
Both will be on Sundays then.
Yes, both will be Sundays. Let's talk about the weekend. We want to focus on 5 games. First off, we want to talk about Walled Lake Western at Lowell. We had a shootout in this one. Warriors outscored the Red Arrows 42-40. This was a game that saw 34 points scored in the fourth.
That was an amazing game. I had the pleasure of following the Walled Lake Western clan out to Lowell. My first opportunity to cover a game at Lowell. Beautiful sight, beautiful atmosphere, beautiful night as it was.
Yeah.
Both teams started off slow, but once those offenses started clicking, there was no stopping them. The two quarterbacks almost combined for 1,000 yards. Now, the one that we're familiar with here in the Detroit area is Kyle Thomas, who 3 touchdown passes, threw the game winner with 3:03 left. Just a marvelous kid. Really was pumped up in that second half. Had a so-so first half. A good runner. Really scrambles well. Really ad-libs a lot of his plays.
Yeah, 22 of 32 for 345 yards.
Yeah,
that's a solid afternoon.
3 touchdowns.
3 touchdowns, and then he also ran for 17. He had 17 carries, 46 yards.
Yeah, and a lot of those were sacks too. He had a 25-yard loss on a sack. He was making some mistakes early in that game.
Yeah.
Coach Mike Zadebski was telling me, and he kind of was trying to do too much, let the game come to him in the second half, and it was a phenomenal ending, just the way the teams went back and forth.
Walled Lake Western is going to take on Plymouth Salem, so they'll take on Salem this week, and Lowell will host Hubbard High out of Chicago. So I don't know if you know anything about Hubbard High.
That'll be a rout.
Okay. Clarkson at Dakota. This was another game that was had a lot of hype going into it. Certainly lived up to the billing. 27-game win streak. I guess when I say live up to the billing, meaning that we had an amazing surprise win like Walled Lake Western,
right.
I guess. But maybe not, depending on how you want to lay it out. But 27-game winning streak for Clarkson. Macomb Dakota completely shut down their offense in the final 3 quarters. 35-10 victory on Thursday.
You know, we had a caller on the radio show saying, well, how can you rank Clarkson so low? I had them 12. And the reason I gave, they lost their lineman for the last 2 seasons, DJ Zazula, their quarterback. They had to replace all this, and it'll take them time this year. And, you know, coming out of the gate, you had to like Dakota. They had like half their starters coming back. Mike Giannone told me that he really thought the depth that he has this year at each position was maybe the best he's ever had in his 18 years there.
And talk about this Kaiser Carlton.
You know, here's the senior running back that he's kind of been off the radar, but we were just talking off camera a little bit. He's probably a name we're going to have to look at for our Mr. Football race. He's not on our list now.
Right.
I think coming up this week when they play Chippewa Valley, we'll have another good look at him. So good balance at Dakota too, using a 2-quarterback system. They have a lot of weapons, good slot backs. Good mix of juniors and seniors on this team too.
Yeah, Dakota's Carlton, 25 carries for 207 yards, 2 touchdowns, also had 44 receiving yards, 34 of which came on another scoring play. And again, we had a battle last year. It was 24-21 last year. Dakota lost that one to Clarkson. Of course, Clarkson went on to win the state championship. Dakota takes on fellow red rival and neighbor Chippewa Valley this week. Your thoughts on that one?
Well, I was talking to some of the coaches in the red. It seemed like Dakota is always the one everybody's been chasing. Now that, you know, they got beat last year, Sterling Heights-Stevenson beat them during the year, Chippewa Valley got them in the state playoffs. Now it's almost like Dakota is chasing the others now. So I think, you know, I was laughing with some of the coaches. They're like a wounded animal, and watch out for the Cougars who are wounded. But I think they're playing with a little bit of chip on their shoulders this year, Dakota, because they were the big guy.
Yeah.
They got knocked down. Now they're trying to get back up.
For sure, and of course, when you play your neighbor, the community, they share that community. It's always a great rivalry. Clarkson comes back with Bloomfield Hills this week.
That'll be an easy win, but they have West Bloomfield the following week.
So there you go. East Kentwood at Farmington Hills Harrison. East-West showdown here. Falcons came into Harrison on Friday night, and it was two teams that were state semifinalists, correct, a year ago. 35-28 win for East Kentwood.
Yeah, I think East Kentwood isn't getting enough love this year from certain news outlets. I was even checking on one on the west side and really didn't have them ranked that very high. And I had them 9. I kept them 9 this week. I still wasn't overly impressed. I think they're lacking some team speed. But as I found out, that their quarterback, Evan Mayday, he had a marvelous game. He threw like 4 touchdown passes, didn't throw any picks, ran the offense really well, threw for like 260 yards. It was his first varsity start, and I'll tell you, even after the game, he was still nervous.
And you pronounce his name Mayday?
Mayday.
Darn it, I called him Mudday, I think, in the highlights, but it's like one of the, I was like, it can't be Mayday, that sounds too cool.
He has an excellent arm.
I'll be saying his name a lot, I think.
He has an excellent arm. He just overshot a lot of his receivers in that game. I mean, they could have put up more points against Harrison. And for what it's worth, Harrison, they lost a couple of players to Southfield transferring just shortly before the season. I think there are a lot of questions about Harrison, but I was texting to some of our guys saying, they're going to be tough in the OAA White. I really believe that they're going to be really good.
In this one, it was penalties and turnovers.
Right.
Correct?
Right.
3 picks and a lot of penalties.
3 picks, and I think it was 12 penalties for like 115 yards.
Can't win.
They must have had 4 or 5 holding calls. Right. There was an interference call on the last winning drive, and then they had a holding call. So it was 25 yards in penalties they had to help Kentwood score that last touchdown. Watch out for Harrison, though. I think they'll be fine.
They've got Rochester this week?
That'll be a win.
Okay. East Kentwood has East Lansing.
Yeah, I don't know much about East Lansing. The Lansing area, the Class A schools there, we all know about Sexton getting to the state finals last year. I think it's an easy win for Kentwood. All
right, Lake Orion and Chippewa Valley got together in week 1. Big Reds defeated the Dragons in last year's opener 38-35. That was a thriller. Team played out the last team with the ball scenario is kind of the way that it was going to go, right? Chip Valley quarterback Patrick Brenningstool scored a 1-yard touchdown on a 4th and goal with 3 minutes, 32 seconds left in the game, breaking the tie. The extra point by Dane Hagerty gave it a 35-28 lead, and they held it.
Talking to Scott Merchant actually last night, and I said, your defense was not good last year. I mean, even when they beat Dakota in the playoffs, it was 28-27 against Lake Orion that day you're talking about. They gave up over 400 yards to one running back, and he told me he had injuries and he had youth on his front 4. He said, Tom, that's never a good thing, because just thinking of that, it's your linebackers and your safety has to come up and make that play. In fact, Claiborne led them in tackles last year at free safety. That's how shaky they were on defense. He says they're much better this year. I know that 28 doesn't look good for Lake Orion. Merchant was telling me they gave up 1 big play. The other ones, he thought, they played good defense throughout. And he said, Lake Orion's a really good team. He says, watch out for them, in their the OAA Red.
Right.
But Chippewa, this might be their year. We've pumped them up. I had them 7 in the state before the season, moved them up after this week. 40 seniors. Everything seems to be going for them.
Yeah, for sure. Lake Orion takes on Troy Athens this week.
That'll be a win. That'll be a win.
All right, Chip Valley, of course, has Dakota. We talked about that.
Big game.
All right, this is the weekend wrap-up, and we have one more game to talk about, of course, and that was the big game on Saturday. Martin Luther King and Warren DeLaSalle. DeLaSalle's last-second 47-yard field goal attempt came up short.
I heard it hit the crossbar.
Yeah, it was close. So King snuck out with a 12-10 victory over the defending D2 state champ at the Prep Kickoff Classic in Wayne State.
I had a prior engagement, so I left with 8 minutes to go right when King had scored their touchdown to make it 12-10. I remember leaving and telling the people in the press box, DeLaSalle's in trouble.
Yeah.
The quarterback went down.
Yeah, Josh Wilk went down, and they just couldn't move the ball. Right?
And, he was throwing up on the sidelines.
Right.
He had concussion symptoms.
Yeah.
They brought in a brand new quarterback, a transfer out of Parkway Christian. I don't think that guy was really ready. Their offense sputtered after that. And for what it's worth, throughout that whole game, neither offense was really that good. DeLaSalle had a 10-0 lead. They had a touchdown called back. Stritzlinger scored on a long run. It was a holding call. There were some big penalties, big plays in that game. Another play when they had a 10-0 lead, they had a first down at King's 35. First down, they threw a pick. If they, ifs, ands, and buts, but if they could have moved a little closer, kicked that field goal, I thought that 13 points would have done a lot. I remember thinking, King has trouble with their kicking game. They'd have to score maybe 3 times if they got that field goal. But as everything as it was, both defenses were excellent. I think both teams could find themselves, playing for regional titles in the state playoffs when that comes about. And I'm talking with some of my DeLaSalle fans, and they think they're fine. They think their offense is fine. I'm not so sure. Even with Wilk in the game at quarterback, I don't think their offense looked all that good. But you have to give credit to both defenses. So it's just one game. You have to ask yourself, are the defenses for both DeLaSalle and King that good that it made their offense? Because King's offense really didn't do much. Donnie Corley didn't do much. I think he caught like 2 passes. They were inconsistent. They were switching quarterbacks. So
yeah, I was going to say, how about the backup Martinez, Adams, Callaway in the second half?
You gotta love
kind of
these
surprise, right?
hyphen names.
Yeah.
He's a junior, and I think that's a little bit different. They were going with the sophomore for most of the game. They brought the junior in. What I thought he did well, and I think it came out in some of the game stories, is Dale Harvell liked the way he did the read option. I thought he did carry the ball well. Didn't see much out of a throwing arm out of him, which I think they're going to have to rethink things a little bit there at King, because you have all these stars playing the receiver spots, talking about Lavert Hill as well. They got to think of ways of getting those people the ball.
Yeah, all right. Well, DeLaSalle plays Cardinal Carter out of Windsor this week.
Another slam dunk.
King has Detroit Western now.
Another
Detroit Western
dunk.
beat Central Collegiate 28-10 last week.
Throw it out. See, the big games are coming up. Week 5, watch for DeLaSalle against St. Mary's. Week 3, King and East English.
Nice. That is the weekend wrap-up. We certainly appreciate you watching. Make sure you listen to the State Champs High School Friday Night Football Show. It is on Detroit Sports 105.1 from 10 to 11 p.m. Tom and I, Scott Bernstein, jumps in on the conversation. So we're going to break it down for you. We're going to talk about what's happening that night. We'll also recap what took place this Thursday, since we do have Thursday games this week as well. State Champs Extra Point is on Sundays on Channel 7 at 11:30 a.m. It's nothing but Southeast Michigan high school football. State Champs, the high school sports show that includes more than just football, but a lot of more statewide football for you. You can catch that at 9 a.m. on Fox Sports Detroit on Sundays mornings. So that is it. We'll give you a preview of the football season coming up in just a couple days.